It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Breakfast as we cover the very latest in property news every morning, 7 days a week, as heard on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Amazon. And a Tuesday, back with us, the 21st day for May. In just a moment, we have got Veronica Morgan coming up. But first, a new ASIC report is telling us that banks are not meeting legal requirements to assist borrowers facing financial difficulties, exacerbating the issues for many people due to high interest rates and rising living costs. Now, they say that more than 1/3 of people seeking help drop out due to complex and convoluted processes. The ASIC Commissioner says that the lenders often fail to communicate clearly about customers' rights, with many having to repeat their hardship stories multiple times and facing a lot of document requests. Although 94% of hardship applications are approved, 40% of recipients fall back into arrears shortly after the assistance ends. ASIC says that perhaps legal action may have to be taken against major financial institutions, highlighting the need for significant improvement in lender support processes. And if you are in that situation, you can probably identify with that report. So right now, let's go to Veronica Morgan from Home Buyer Academy in Sydney. And a very good morning to you, Veronica. Welcome back to the Real Estate Breakfast.
Good morning, Craig. Nice to be back. Thanks for having me.
So that's a bit of a worry, isn't it? More than 1/3 of people seeking help drop out due to complex and convoluted processes.
Oh, it is a concern because a lot of the people, I would guess, that are seeking help would have fairly recently been first home buyers. I don't have accurate data that I can lay my hand on right this minute, but I have spoken to a number of people in this space, and they're saying that a lot of people that are suffering hardship at the moment from those rapidly rising interest rates that we've had have been first home buyers that had bought in, particularly in that sort of post-COVID low interest rate period of time. And so these are people that have finally got themselves onto the property ladder and then really were in the situation where they've had such rapidly rising mortgage repayments. So they need a lot of help, and they need a lot of help to be able to stay on the property ladder. So the fact that the third dropout is very alarming.
Yeah, and the other thing about it is that it's quite high in terms of the applications being approved. I mean, they say it's 94%, but as I mentioned, 40% of those recipients fall back into arrears shortly after. It's kind of like the banks have got to meet the moment. We've talked about this on the podcast many times. We're in uncharted waters. Everybody else is expected to pivot here, so the banks need to do the same just to ease that financial burden.
Yeah, and look, it's interesting because when you think about first home buyers trying to get into the market, obviously rising interest rates has resulted in vastly decreasing or rapidly decreasing borrowing capacities as well. So, you know, it's hard enough trying to save up to get into the market, but then when you're in a situation where your borrowing capacity decreases as each interest rate rise comes along, then that means what you can buy becomes, you know, smaller or in different area or whatever. And so these are people that actually have got there, and the government is coming forward with, you know, it's been coming forward with first home buyer grants for over 20 years now, but there's also such things coming out as shared equity schemes, for example, to help certain buyers to get into the property market. And perhaps it's time that we actually looked at some of those shared equity schemes, perhaps as a way to provide an option and a way out of this situation for these people that are under such pressure. So I'm just throwing it out there. It's time to do something a little bit rather than just let them suffer and wait for the next lot of first home buyers come through, is actually deal with the people that are in the system at the moment.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because we've talked about the shared equity. People are either all in or all against. Yeah, it's a good topic of debate, that's for sure. Let's turn our attention to Domain the other day. They had a very interesting piece about the bad news for young Australians, which we're talking about, aiming to enter the property market, with one real estate commentator suggesting that they may need to save until they're 63 to afford a deposit. And he referenced a young barista earning $20 to $30 an hour, pointing out that current research, market research, is suggesting that it would take that person until retirement age to save for a deposit.
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, look, that's a little bit sensationalist in my view. I'm not sure how many baristas seriously are saving up to buy a home, and I'm not sure that's ever been the case. You know, I love my barista. Let's face it, it's very essential to my daily well-being. However, it's not certainly the type of job that people might choose as a career. Some may, but, you know, usually it's transitional, right? So if they're, you know, being a barista whilst they're studying at university to work in a different industry, for argument's sake, I don't think anyone seriously considers that baristas are trying to save up to buy a home. So therefore, it's a bit of a long shot of an example. Yes, it is very difficult, and the reality is also that commentator is Sydney-based. It's the most expensive city in the country. Now, as part of with my Home Buyer Academy hat on, you know, we help first home buyers because we have a program and an online course to teach first home buyers how to buy property, and we have lots of people in that program that are great savers and have been savers, some of them since school, but certainly some of them all the way through uni. And then when they start their full-time work, they continue that saving program, and they are buying property. They are taking advantage of some government schemes. Some of them are taking advantage of parental help or grandparents' help even. Some of them are doing it completely under their own steam. So it is not impossible to become a first home buyer. Something like 100,000 first home buyers every year attest to that. So it is expensive. I get it. It is, and it's hard. But there's work to be done by anybody who wants to buy into the property market. And that hasn't really changed. Yes, there have been some more challenges that have come of recent years, but I think the fact is it is possible to buy a property. We just have to look beyond thinking that baristas can do it in Sydney. So it's one of our lowest per hour earners in our most expensive city. It's not a great example.
Now, the same person went on to talk about people using platforms like OnlyFans to help them afford to get into the property market. I'm just curious, out of all of the people that you're engaged with, are any of them on TikTok doing OnlyFans to sort of supplement the deposit?
I don't know anyone personally doing that, but, you know, why not? I guess if that's something that appeals to you and you feel like there's a market out there for whatever you're offering, then why not? You know, I certainly do know a lot of people that have taken a second job for a period of time to help their saving or accelerate their savings. Often people might have a side hustle as well. I remember back to when I was a first home buyer a long time ago now, but yes, I had a second job for a long time. So that in itself is not unusual. I guess it's a little bit more novel, someone deciding to create an OnlyFans page, but whatever rocks their boat, I say.
Yeah, well, it appears that might be taking place. And what about the vendor advocacy? I know that you wanted to talk about this because sales agents either love or hate these particular vendor advocates.
Interesting, actually, because I wear a few different hats. I have a buyer's agency in Sydney called Good Deeds, and over the years, and originally I was a sales agent as well, and over the years we've had increasing demand for our vendor advocacy service, and what a vendor's advocate does is actually effectively holds the hand and guides a vendor through the process of choosing a selling agent and keeps the bastards honest, if you want to keep it that way. Some sales agents are amazing and fantastic at doing what they do. And so our role is to make sure that our clients are finding those agents to work with. But also there are some areas where maybe it's not necessarily the case where there are a plethora of great agents to choose from. And certainly in our role, we help people choose agents and then work with those agents to maximise the outcome and the sales price for those properties, but also help the vendor understand that they need to be able to be prepared to meet the market if they're going to put their property on the market, and also help them interpret what's being the information that's given to them from the sales agent as well, so they can make better decisions. So we're getting more and more involved in this, but it's interesting because I'm seeing more and more buyers agents decide to do this vendor advocacy work. And what alarms me, and I can understand sales agents taking umbrage to this, because a lot of them don't know how to sell a property, and all they're doing is clipping the ticket. They're all trying to see an opportunity to make money from a referral and putting them sort of a banner on their door to say, I'm a vendor's advocate as well, and actually get in the way and can stuff up some deals by really not knowing what they're doing and trying to be a gatekeeper to that owner as well, and really making life difficult, I guess, for sales agents and for vendors. So it's it's an interesting area. And as I said, I certainly am seeing a lot more inquiry for our services in this space. And I'm noticing a mixed reception when we're talking to sales agents because of this. Have you come across this?
Yeah, it's not something that we've actually spoken about before, but the question that many vendors listening right now might have, Veronica, is when you say clipping the ticket, how much do they clip the ticket? So what is the commission rate split, if you like, for the advocate?
This is actually really interesting because in Victoria, the vendors advocacy as a concept really started in Victoria. I actually first came across it myself. I used to co-host a television show on Foxtel called Location Australia. And we actually purchased a property in Point Cook, and it was being handled through a vendors advocate. And so we had to put our offers, all of our inquiries were made to the vendor's advocate, not to the agent, which I found really strange that they were completely in between us as the buyers and the agent. And I subsequently discovered that that's a really common thing in Victoria, where people would engage a vendor's advocate to operate in such a way. And I've spoken to a few that charge up to 50% of the sales fee.
Wow.
That's quite a big chunk. Now, certainly on the other end of that, and certainly I have not come across anybody charging that in other states. I've heard of 30%, but that's really the maximum. 20-25 is more common. And in fact, it's quite commonly accepted amongst, real estate agents that 20% referral fee is acceptable. So in a way, a vendor's advocate that just charges 20%, well, that's they're getting a bonus if they're a good advocate that can actually help them communicate with the vendor and the best outcome for that property, and they get the best sales result and help the vendor recognise the best buyer, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of ways that a good advocate can work in conjunction with a sales agent. But so there's quite a big disparity in terms of the split.
Well, if you're a vendor and if you have used a vendor advocacy person, please let us know just what that process was like. Our email address is myrealestatepodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. Veronica, lovely to talk again, chat all things real estate, including OnlyFans and everything in between.
Very happy to talk about strange and wonderful things around property. Thanks for having me, Craig.
Don't navigate the real estate market alone. Let us help guide you in the world of real estate every day. Make better informed decisions with the latest news and insights.
So a big name doesn't guarantee that an investment is going to work out okay for you. I guess being Bezos, at least if everybody lost all their money, he could probably pay them back out of his own pocket, but I think that's quite unlikely to happen.
Yeah, it's a good point in terms of well-known names, because, you've only got to look as recently as the crypto guys, Sam Bankman-Fried with that FTX, which went down the gurgler. You've got to be very careful. You can't just say, Margaret, Bezos is a guarantee.
Exactly. And it isn't a guarantee, and it's unlikely he'd be guaranteeing the investment either. These things are set up in such a way that there's a lot of structures put in place to separate Bezos, I would say, from the entire investment, so that if anything goes wrong, he's not held personally liable for that.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.